Welcome, everyone.
Hey, thanks for coming, everyone. We're going to have a special show.
Yes, we have a special guest with us tonight, Mike Forrest, who has a remarkable path in relation to ancient alien artifacts. Yeah.
So, we're going to go deep into this subject, and he has some interesting things to show us and open your guys' world up to what is possible and what could have happened in the past.
Yes, with a lot of
Excited.
research, and data based on those artifacts. So, welcome, Mike.
And thanks for coming.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So, how did this journey, this world open up for you, for the audience out there?
Well, I've collected rocks and minerals for my whole since I was like 3 years old, and I used to carry around Michael's rock box. And my grandpa, he was a miner in the North Idaho area, Montana, and so that kind of came as just a natural thing. I'd always go to the rock and mineral shows, and my good buddy, he went down to Tucson Gem Show back in I think it was 2018. And when he came back, he had some of these carvings that he had said he'd gotten from an archaeologist down there, and that they were 10,000 years old. And I laughed at him. I'm like, sure, bro. Okay, trust me, right? And so I started looking at them, and they were really well done carvings. And these were from Abuelos de Jalisco, and I had no idea anything about Mexico at that time, and other than Cancun or something of that nature. And so this was all new to me, and I really didn't believe it. And I made a wager with him that I could prove that it was probably modernly made. And when I made that wager, I started to buy some of these pieces off of eBay and try to reach out to the sellers and the different people. I didn't know anyone in Mexico. Inevitably, I found a gentleman who had a fair collection of these pieces, and his cousin down in Mexico had hundreds of them and had collected these for years and had quite a bit more information. So that was the first time that really opened my mind to the pieces in Tula. And seeing that and the differences that these were coming from multiple different locations, it intrigued me for sure. But I still didn't really buy in. And so as a skeptic, I started to try to disprove it and get some lab testing done and just try to collect a fair amount of evidence that would show that this was obviously being done modernly, trying to find the sources, the craftsmen. If I could get custom pieces made with the right amount of money, I offered tens of thousands of dollars to these guys who were selling these pieces for $30 to $300. And so this was big time money, and they knew I could provide it, yet they still couldn't provide me custom pieces and wouldn't encroach upon, their locality or anything like that. So it was interesting. And once we got to Tula, there was a gentleman there, and his name was Patricio. And he had sold me a couple pieces, and he said, Hey, man, we've got this company coming in to film a documentary. We're going to do some digging. And I'd never really seen any of the digging at this point. It had pretty much been elusive. There wasn't really any YouTube videos or anything like that showing any of these pieces being unearthed, which really made me even more skeptical about it. And so they had Gen 6 Productions, which was owned by Steve Quayle, come in. And they did a large documentary there with Max and the Hernandez family, and they yielded quite a few things on this. It is a 3.5-hour documentary, and it's very much poised into understanding what these pieces are, more so than even the digging. So it's kind of hard to follow for some. But nonetheless, the footage that they do show and the digging that does go down is what inspired the caves to be found, and what was telling them that there was more to this land, because they went and scouted quite a bit of property with the GPR, ground penetrating radars, and they had a good amount of pieces that they weren't, or a good amount of anomalies, I should say, that they hadn't had the opportunity to fulfill. And so the guys there in town, after the documentary was done, would continue to go from hole to hole that they had marked out on this GPS, and they continued to provide a lot of pieces. Inevitably, it got to the point where there was glass coming out, and I thought that they were making it modernly. And this, I couldn't believe that there was glass and big glass skulls and things that just, they had air bubbles in there. I didn't buy into that at that point. And so the guy said, I've got video of it. I've got video, but he wouldn't give it to me. He said he's putting it in his documentary. And this went on for like a year, to the point where I eventually blasted him on social media, and he was very, very offended, and went and re-rented GPR and started scouting for more things. They got down to the 16-foot dig level where the Gen 6 documentary essentially finished off, and they found a triple ground floor with petroglyphs and an entire cave system with these pieces in there all over the place, as well as the skulls and a whole lot more. You know, the petroglyphs alone were very unique. They were not something that could have been done by a Dremel or something modernly, like triple ground floor. There's a quarried stone above the cave that's positioned there very, very specifically, as if it was suspended at one point and then covered up with dirt around it, you know. And so seeing all that type of stuff, I know that you know, these gentlemen didn't do that. And at that point, I really started to believe that this is probably real. And you know, so I've just been trying to document what because the guys down there are not really fully ready for doing like documentaries and speaking on this topic specifically. Like they know about it, but as far as the history and how it could connect into beyond, is something that's really been washed. I had no idea. When I did an interview with Max, he told me, you know, I asked him when the first time he saw an Anunnaki or an alien, and he kind of shook his head and he's like, I don't know. You know, we didn't know what that was. I didn't know anything about Egypt or Sumerian until, you know, the early 2000s when I had the internet and stuff. And so it really didn't happen in terms of history class for them. And in terms of when they found these pieces, they just thought it was their own history. And I think that's where it kind of got buried and covered up over the years. And so now, you know, I've wrote 5 books on this topic. We've gotten a fair amount of scientific evidence. Getting more scientific evidence is our main goal at this point, and preserving the pieces in a museum. Getting real academia to acknowledge this stuff is very, very difficult. You see it with the Nazca mummies, where they haven't even gone to verify the site. They finally just took one into the university and started to do real research on this. And it took an American team going down there and verifying what the teams that were down there already, Jaime Mossum and stuff, had already found. And a lot of their DNA testing and things like that, even though it's done by credible and multiple sources, still doesn't hold a candlestick in the government's eyes. And so seeing this has definitely eluded me to trying to just document it in an entirety rather than push it forward on the mainstream. Because right now, these things that are trying to make it in the mainstream, they seem to be cut down for whatever purpose. And there's obviously a larger disclosure that we're facing here with aliens and UFOs. I mean, everybody's seen these drones and things that have been on TV recently. I think that reality is that this might actually be connected to that. And if that's the case, then, you know, disclosure in a nutshell is much more complex and ancient than probably most people had given it theory of, you know.
Yes. When you were talking about the museum, I see that as currently that taking that action from a lot of groups that, due to the fact that they are not taken into consideration by the government in most of the cases, then as the purpose is to put this information out, then it's the most visible way to do it. You know, creating private museums that actually, where people can come or can go and then connect with the artifacts, because just by looking at them, you're already receiving upgrades, you know?
Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah.
Yes. For instance,
these symbols, it's more than just a symbol, you know?
Yes. When you were talking about the crystal skulls, I had the opportunity, now that we were talking backstage, with a friend who is a private collector, and he has a friend who has some of these artifacts of these pieces, and some of them are like the huge ones that you were naming, you know, like the crystal, like the quite clear quartz and so forth, and other ones are super polished skulls that are in blue obsidian, in green obsidian. And when you put the light to them, you see the cosmos. And
Yeah.
not to mention the amount of energy that you're feeling, you know? So, because that cannot be denied as well, you know, as the proof of digging out, which is very important. It's nothing like witnessing it. And another fact that I have come to differ, to have it, to know whether a piece is really ancient or not, is the amount of energy that it is vibrating.
Yeah. Yeah, and they really do. What's even interesting is I made silicone molds of some of these pieces, and I filled them with resin to make replicas of some of the pieces just for study purposes. And there's astrolabes and star maps. And when people would hold these things, they would feel this energy about them still, and you know, placebo energy. I just kind of brushed it off. But then I got thinking about it, that art is more than just physical form, that there's actually emotion and energy captured into this vessel. And it's like the Mona Lisa. If you go and snap a picture with your phone and post it on the internet of the Mona Lisa, people are still going to feel that connection to it and still feel its, you know, grace. So I feel that these items have a lot of that same type of energy on that level. But then you take a, let me see if I have it here somewhere. I think I do. I've got an EMF. Oh yeah, right here. It's a tri-field meter, and you can take one of these and turn it to standard, and you know, we can go around, and it's not going to do that because I'm grounded. But here, let me flip you guys around here real quick.
Yes.
And they have like different signatures. Like this goes up to 160, but this, oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that there would be EMF detected energy. Now, I'm going to tell you
I
something
wanted
that'll
to
blow
see
your
that.
mind.
I wanted to see that one because actually I was explaining in one of my courses, the one that has rings, that when you time travel, actually those are one of those artifacts that you get to project yourself into the future, to say it somehow.
Interdimensional travel, I think, is the thing is that time is only existence in this dimension, and so once you go beyond that dimension, I think that's time travel in a nutshell as well. And you know, biblically, there's these talks of rings and within a rings in some of the books there, and
Yeah.
that's really interesting because seeing it here, and I had a gentleman who's really an expert on Sumerian symbols and as well as Egyptian symbols, and he said, I'm gonna go back over here and show you these symbols, but that he said they represent energy and the flow of this. And so
Yes,
if there's magnetic fields or energy going on in these spinning rings,
exactly.
and you know, he's in a boat in the
Exactly.
middle, it's very, very interesting to think about. So I really definitely think that they were onto something in this interdimensional perspective. And you see on many of the pieces, one, there's, you know, the light bodies or serpent type bodies. There's all kinds of different, you know, they come out of these planets, and some of them have feet, some of them have wings, some of them don't. And when you think about the Bible, and there's these sons of God that they talk about. Well, a lot of people associate that in Genesis with angels, and some
Yeah.
people don't. There's no definitive answer to this. However, if they were angels and they are the parents of the Anunnaki, or excuse me, of the Nephilim, which were giants a lot of times, well, you know, a lot of these pieces show giant beings and different types of monstrosities. And so a lot of them, some of them have wings, and that could just be that they were part angel in that amount or whatnot, you know? So, yeah.
This one has wings. The other one is the same as yours has on yours.
Yep.
Wow.
The serpent body. Yeah.
I want to say in relation to the rings, because I know that you're also into DNA for obvious reasons. So the DNA also through the catenan close itself into rings, you know. So
Interesting.
when
Yeah.
we connect through our DNA to that interdimensional travel, it's the entangled universe, the quantum tunneling, So yeah, that's why I feel the resonance of these artifacts as they are spinning energetically, they are creating a relationship with our DNA. And that's why we receive all those upgrades.
Yeah, I could see that. In fact, it's almost as if some of these objects show that in indicatively. Like, I think if I'm trying to think off my top of my head, which one would be the best? This skull right here, I think, actually has. Well, you can see these two beings working with DNA here.
Yes, yes, constantly. Constantly.
Yeah, they work with the DNA. There's Saturn depicted often. The all-seeing eye. The really interesting one is the forming of the light here. I'll show you. It's almost as if these beings are trying to balance this.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and you mentioned as well an art in one of your artifacts, a being with a trident. I also saw this one in a cube. They sent to me an image of a cube which I had never seen, and it has. You will show me a cube. Yeah. Oh, of course.
And it actually sits up on its corner. The stand below will hold it, but it's balanced there perfectly, and I just don't trust it all the time, so I don't leave it there like that. But yeah, lots of cube things. This is an obsidian cube here that has a box that was found. We find all of these solid shapes with symbols on them. The trident, I'm going to bring it over by the light here. This thing is ridiculous. It's very, very large. This the metal here is it's half silver, and then iron and tin.
It looks like the metal that we have, the rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, what is this alloy? And it's like, I've heard of orichalcos, that Atlantean thing.
Yep.
Yep. And people know how to synthesize it.
Yes.
There is that orichalcum or whatever, and it's supposedly part gold and part bronze.
Is this the same metal?
That metal there's different. That's a bronze there, I believe. I've got they're not down here, but I've got quite a few different bronze specimens.
Not so sure about bronze.
This one's really interesting because it see how it's corroded in a very odd fashion, or not corroded, but oxidized rather. It's some of it. I mean, it's very interesting. It's been cleaned. In order to ship things lately, we've had to clean them, but this I think will yield a really interesting alloy. It might actually be different things in terms of, that's why the copper parts are oxidized. And by looking at it with a microscope, you can see that it was like hammered out by hand. So it could very well be a primitive metal.
This has even an eye on the top and a pyramid as well. And some codes here, symbols as well. Each one of the two are different, similar in the pyramid on the top and the eye.
And we're gonna decode what each one of these objects do. Like I've been writing a whole bunch down on it. And if you like, we can go around your room and I can kind of swiftly go to the most powerful objects, and then we can tune into what they got going on.
So you guys see anything like this?
Ooh, beautiful. Oh.
It's a scope.
Yes.
And I mean, this facet I thought it has to be fake. There's no way. When I first got this, I got this back in 2021. But the limestone and obviously the drawings and everything are so consistent with everything else. I know this to be a genuine piece, but to see that type of faceting capabilities here really brings the whole question of how advanced is this civilization. Obviously that metal work that you're seeing, the alloys on that pitchfork, there's so many advanced things here that require quite a bit more complex chemical, alchemical type transformations in order to get those metals isolated and made
Yes.
into that combination, right? So
Yes,
yeah,
masters in alchemy. And
for sure.
now that you mention the limestone, that has a very specific treatment because, of course, it's a different limestone, like the one that we see in Egypt. This one is quite solid, whereas the one in Egypt is like almost, perhaps it's also the weather factors, but even if you
No, it's
go,
it's it's the amount of quartz at the root. There's calcite and quartz and different things in limestone. So there's lots of different It's just like marble. The marble from Italy is better or something like that. It's just the different types of limestone from different areas. What's interesting is this part of Tula by the pyramid there has this type of limestone
exactly,
predominantly. However,
exactly,
when you go to the outskirts or down to Mikokan, Lake Quetzal type of areas, you're going to find different types of limestone and different stones used as the primary stone. But it's absolutely a regional thing, and it is very special. The amount of phosphorescence that it has, the way it glows, and things of that nature, I think is why they chose it specifically to be by the pyramid with royalty or whatever was going on at that time.
Yes. Have you come across with what is that fluorescent crystal that they use to compress?
To make it glow.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Check this out. So they found a ground floor. Oops. They found this ground floor here, and this is a piece of the crystal here. I'll turn this off, and you can see it here.
Mm,
Yeah, we got a
yeah.
bunch of those ones that glow,
Wow.
like this guy and this obelisk.
And that's the stone, the pure stone that is
Wow,
used.
love it.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gorgeous.
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna full screen you
Oh,
this.
wow. Wow, look at that.
This.
Yeah, they all have really unique glowing. Like this is just the limestone here, and it'll have a really short phosphorescence glow with no luminescence. And then there's certain things like this jaguar here. You can see it'll turn green and red in a short burst. And then this over here will go green to blue. Which is just bizarre.
That's awesome. And just so you know, we're talking, but you can't hear us because we're
Yes.
on giving you full screen. So
Okay.
feel free to show us about. Beautiful.
My flashlight just died, so good timing here. All right.
Yeah, well, that's a huge disc. Have you ever activated any one of those pieces and play with them?
They start levitating. They say, "You have been chosen, Michael."
No, I haven't had any
any
activations per se, but I haven't tried either. As a curator of these objects, I know that they have heavy occult roots, and they also have very heavenly and very high light as well. So this is likely a place that was known as a time warp portal, and this was a place where good and evil work together. That's why Tula means balance or scales, and why balance is shown with those two beings, the two sons of God, possibly balancing the light. And without chaos, you don't have order. Without the threat of death, there's no reason to live. There's all these factors that require each other a balance, our moon, everything. And I think that's a big factor. So when you're activating these pieces, some of them might be able to, do things on a very blessed level, and other might be cursed and extremely satanic, literally, or very sinful. We find, here, I'll show you an example. The crescent moon. Have you seen the crescent moon on any of the pieces?
No. Well, yes, but just as a mark, not like in relief.
Okay. Well, the crescent moon is it goes back to a Sumerian god named Nanner, which was the son of Enlil.
Yes.
And Enlil could be Satan or Michael's adversary, the red dragon. You know, the Anunnaki are said to have come from a primordial dragon. That was who created them, supposedly. And when you look at the story of Michael and this dragon fighting, well, was Michael a dragon too, or is he just some man with a sword in front of a dragon? You know, that's kind of what, you know, it leads us to image by reading it. But I think that it's plausible that this the Elohim was something like an American. It wasn't just, you know, that you were an angel or a Ophaim or a seraphim, but like anyone that was of that higher level of the heavens was actually Elohim. And so when it's listed in the Bible, they translated Elohim to Lord. So now anytime it says Lord in caps, that was actually Elohim pre-translation. And so Elohim might mean a variety of things. That's like Americans. It could mean a variety of things. It could be talking about a scientist. It could be talking about a criminal, right? And so that's, I think, what we have to remember, even with the Anunnaki as well, is that if they are the fallen angels or the watchers that it's talked about in Enoch, then it's very likely that they could have, you know, good and bad in them. When Satan's tail took the 200 with him, they weren't all bad. Only some of them banded together to create this pact against God. But at the beginning, you know, it was good and bad mixed together, like the Sophia, which is the feminine aspect that's really tied into this heavily. There's a book called the Pistis Sophia, if you guys have ever looked at, but it connects so hard to this topic. When you see these images, it's like it's something right out of the book. It's wild.
You know, now that you were mentioning Nanat, it also takes me to YssaH, which was another name, you know, for the moon god in relation to Egypt, and that then was related to Yahweh, you know. So
right. And so Yahweh is really interesting. So there was a document found in Cremona called the Cremona document, and it was a Knights Templar document that was found in the 90s. I think it was the 90s. And there was all kinds of treasures, gold pieces, and there were some documents. And the gentleman who sold it to the Vatican on record for 250 grand back in the 90s, he took pictures of all the documents. And the documents were written in an encoded language. And the cryptics to translate it, he didn't give the Vatican. So he kept that with these documents, hoping someday he would be able to find out what it said and you know, have something on whatever, right? And so eventually he contacted Scott Woltar, and Scott Woltar did this translation over the last few years. And on the cruise that I was presenting on, he gave this presentation, and it talked about Yahweh being a dual-gendered Godhead. And what's really interesting, if you look at like the Cathar people, they believed that there was like two gods in the Bible. There was a good God and a bad God. And so if this dual gendered Godhead, it's possible that they may have had, you know, two different sides or two different perceptions in this reality that could have been in that fashion. So seeing that and the fact that the Cathar people were killed off completely, that they went through 9 popes. So there were 9 different popes in command that all agreed to murder these people, man, woman, and child. They literally, none survived this. They're gone. And one of the worst cases of genocide in our history went on through the Crusades in like the 1300s. And they believed in Jesus. They weren't pagan at all. They believed that Jesus was their savior. But they did believe that there was two gods in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and there was a bad one and a good one, and that's what they were essentially killed for. But it really goes back to what you just said in terms of how this God is perceived in Egypt and also in Sumeria, and it makes you wonder, you know.
Well,
I also dove into that, and I agree with the Cathars' belief, and I go on beyond it because the signatures throughout the Bible of entanglement as like 6+ different gods, like all mashed together. Enlil, Anu, it's like a anti-verse version of the prime creator of the galaxy, which is, you know, what most people would connect to positively as source. Then the Amen. And a bunch of others. I think, you know, kind of there's, you know, people getting voices in their head in various times, and they're told the Israelite God, the God of the Israelites, doesn't encompass the whole world, interestingly.
Right.
You know, I was also thinking about, for instance, when we go to the Islam and how important for them is the moon. One day I was asking a friend who is Muslim, and I said, "And where is the sun in, you know, in the mosques? You know, where is the sun?" And they said that it was mostly about knowingness, yet not like a former cult as they do with the moon and how important the moon is for them. And also, if we take into consideration the Kaaba for the cubes that you have there, you know.
You're on it. You're on
it. So I do believe that the original Kaaba was in Petra, in Jordan. You know, I knew it's a guy that, well, a mister that has done a really good research on that, placing the direction that all the mosques have in the tabla, you know, that is supposed to point out to the Kaaba, but it's not pointing out to the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia. It's actually pointing out, if you interconnect the lines, to Petra, to Jordan. And they say that the Kaaba was also to praise the moon or the moon god. But before, it was even by some primordial, let's say, divinities that didn't even have a form, a shape. They were just geometries.
Interesting.
And they would compress them as information, as energy inside that cube, and then would do very specific ceremonies to nourish from that energy, and in comparison to how now it's used the Kaaba.
Can you give us a little bit of some of your theories on some of the objects that you have might do, in like what your scientific analysis and intuition combined together? What do you think?
I mean, there's a large variety of things. I mean, we found portals that are clear as day. I mean, I'll just point it here. There's clear as day telescopes and portals and you know, mirrors, scrying type mirrors of obsidian. You can see, which is, you know, obviously this. There's a real purpose to polish obsidian to this type of clarity, right? I mean, it takes serious effort to make this, and a lot of care was given. I think there was technology like alchemy available at that time. There's depictions of the pyramids being active and putting out energy and beams of energy going up towards celestial bodies. So I think there was absolutely a connection there with, you know, something much larger. They obviously knew a lot. There's the crystal skulls and all of these things where there's ancient Native American tales that all the history is stored in the crystals. They don't specifically say crystal skulls in this. However, you know, finding crystal skulls like the Mitchell Hedges skull that's been documented so long ago, when they weren't really, you know, there would be no reason to polish and make something like that at that time for that type of hoax. I don't think. There's also the Mexican president who has given Uri Geller a crystal skull that was found down there that's supposedly ancient, and it looks just like the ones from Tula. So, I mean, as far as this, that we found Ouija boards, we found chess boards, we found cups and saucers and large chalices and scopes, like I showed earlier. I think there was purpose in terms of some of these objects were used as ceremonial pieces, like the cups and things of that nature, the vases, etc. But as far as like this scope goes, I mean, I look through this and I don't see anything. I've shot lasers and different types of things through it, and it's interesting, but I don't see what the purpose would be. Now, like the telescope back here, it actually has a functional piece of fluoride in there that does add amplification or magnification rather, which is strange at B. We found a few of these. One of them had actual a concave lens and turned everything like it should be. So there might have been use there. The Nerubi lens out of Saudi Arabia was found, and it's dated at 4,000 years old. It's the oldest supposed magnifying glass out there. And so if they had that there, and an odd placement too in Saudi Arabia, I think is very connected to this, as you were just talking about with the Kaaba and some of these things that go back into this. Also, how tightly ran Saudi Arabia is on an archaeological perspective. I think they have a lot that they're hiding. I actually had an archaeologist reach out to me. I posted some of these pieces from YssaH on Instagram asking, if anyone knew anything. I was trying to disprove it. And this lady reached out and she says, "Where did you get that?" She's like, "I've seen this before. I've seen this in Romania in caves, and I've seen this in Saudi Arabia." She's like, "I worked for the sheikh in the temple there after I worked in Romania for 14 years." And she said that there are jinn and there are things that are absolutely real that they're hiding regarding this topic. And that was when I knew almost nothing about it. So seeing it now, what's come of this, she obviously was very, very much onto something and was telling me the truth.
Mm. Can you have us show us around slowly? We're gonna have you full screen, and then you can show, because the audience I think wants to like.
Yeah.
Just before that, in regarding to the artifact that you said that you haven't found a purpose to it, the one that has the crystal, I do feel I'm connected to it, and when an array of sunlight hits to it in a very specific point, it enlightens some of the glyphs that are hiddenly engraved there.
Okay, interesting.
Something.
You might not be able to hear us, but we're going to go full screen. So feel free to go slow and show everyone.
Yeah. These are all pieces from YssaH de Lisco. YssaH is really interesting. There is a lot of question on the legitimacy of some of the pieces, but you look at something like these vases here, and the reason I even say that is because this is a red glue, and this vase had been completely destroyed at one point. And I've bought in quite a few of these pieces, and if the guys break something when they're digging it out, they don't use the ancient glue to repair it, and they definitely don't go to that much extreme to put something back together. The super glue is always smudged and whatnot. So seeing that, it really brings a lot of light to how much love and care they put into these objects in YssaH, and that there are a lot of legitimate pieces. This one specifically as well, it's got these little holes in the inside of it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but they're drilled onto the inside in here. And it's actually a seismic detector. So this is a great use case of something that's definitely used. They would put this by volcanoes, and as you can see, it doesn't sit straight. Everything sits straight that they make, unless it has a purpose that it's supposed to rock. And so the seismic activity will cause this to go like this. The balls will fall off. They'll check it every day. If the balls are still on the side, they're good. If not, they know it's coming, right? And then they can test how long and how frequent and so on and so forth. More stuff from YssaH here. These boxes are fairly common from Tula. This one is one of a few we've actually found. They have pyrite balls in them, which is an interesting thing energetically, and the fact that they would be able to get that like that. This here's the oh, it's actually on the other side of this box. Oh, my bad. You can see the pyramids here. That's what I was mentioning earlier. If you watch Skinwalker Ranch at all, this is really interesting because you've got these spheres, right? And they actually have, well, you've seen the orbs like in Manchester and stuff that they've been getting on film. So to see all these orbs carved out so intricately is pretty fascinating. And even on like the inside of this one is, oops, his little helmet fell off here. If I can get it to focus. It's got a little quartz visor shield thing. I mean, the details are just, pretty ridiculous. What's really kind of crazy.
That sphere is insane.
Yeah.
The one with the ring on it. I mean, all of
Yeah,
them.
check this out. It opens up, and on the inside, there's 4 little guys. And if you listen to Bob Lazar, he talks about this reactor in the center of these crafts and stuff, and they put this red ruby in the center. It's almost like it's like a little reactor, you know.
These are amazing. They're giving off a huge amount of energy, especially that big one.
Yes.
We find these. Let's see if I can get. There we go. You can see this little. It almost looks like metal inlaid into the head of this guy, and we found it in quite a few pieces now, and it's actually meteorite. We've had it certified by a gemologist as meteorite from Argentina. So it's kind of wild that the artifact, what they sold it for, the meteorite is worth by itself, just taking it out of the piece, tons more. So it's really, you know, that's another type of thing that I look at is I believe this more, because if they're selling me something like gold or meteorite that is worth a lot for a very cheap price, I know that they're not out there buying that for mass production, you know. These canisters are a mosaic, so each little square is an individual stone glued together, and then
That's like the Zoroaster sign, right? Like
mm-hmm.
the winged disc.
Yep. And it has a cylinder seal on the inside of it here. I'm not going to pull it out because it's really tricky to get your fingers in there, but nonetheless, it's full of just language. And it's got a little teeth to lock it in. There's a piece of ceramic from Abuelos. And if you ever see these little guys, I think they're maybe from a more, I think they were painted in an earlier time, because even this has red paint on it, which is interesting.
Yeah, they are called the Atlanteans of Tula, and they carry handbags as well.
Yep. Yeah, this one actually, believe it or not, is holding a pine cone. Let's see if I can turn the light on there a little bit, maybe. Oh, it's actually got some luminescence on there too. And I think he's got maybe a handbag over here or something. It's kind of hard to see. This is a really interesting skull because it's got
super powerful.
The light going into the pyramid with the eye, feeding the pineal gland. Oops, sorry guys. I stood up the wrong way. But it's also got these winged, angelic looking beings working with UFOs. Clearly. I think that's really a critical thing to focus on here with the drones and things. You know, if these beings are working with these devices, and that's where we reverse engineered things. I mean,
you sleep with those, they can give you tons of knowledge.
I think you're right. Let's see, where's the... thought there was the... Oh, no. I have it turned around. There's a wheel on one of these things here. You can see the luminescence. It's faded quite a bit, but you can see it still lighting up. Compared to this one, it's really...
I love that one in the center.
Which, yeah, the bracelet?
Yeah, I loved it.
A lot of your devices.
Actually, it's alive. Like you can activate it and it can rotate. You know, I found this a lot related to plasma tech. Even the solar disk, well, what's known as solar disk, is an orb. Now that you mentioned the drones,
a lot of your devices are communication systems, and it's like a. So the scrying mirror, you can meet a being if you want. There's like a whole ceremony for that. orbs seem to have, all these are replicas of things people have seen, beings have seen.
Yeah, that's what
and
I
they have
thought too.
connections to the energy that of that device.
Wow,
The spheres have the ability to amplify levitation.
yes.
The swirling ringed one seems to be connected to a device that exists and our military has replicated, which makes a big plasma field through the circulating rings, and then it's like a spherical portal. This has also been presented in the movie Contact, as well as the Looking Glass project in replication of the pineal gland antenna.
Wow.
Ooh, I like that one. Oof,
Wow,
that
that's
one's
super powerful. Oh, red luminescence.
Yeah, I think
wow.
that necklace is one of your most powerful ones.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
Yes.
Some of the glow is just, I've got a bent neck staff that's really, I mean, but this thing, you can see it, like, it'll blind you if you look at it directly.
Yeah, you should get a bigger head. You're gonna have a lot of knowledge if you.
Your skull will elongate.
Yeah.
You know,
You're gonna get your
see the beads on there?
Next, yeah. Growing pains a bit, but if you can get past those.
Wow. Wow.
So the real question is why did they glow, right? Like, how could they have seen them if they were, primitive? Like, they would have had to have had battery powered black lights. I mean, this is a technology that's just been around in the last 30 or 50 years or something, really. So it just doesn't make sense. The sun's not good enough. But if they really were beings that radiated light as a halo, like the Anunnaki are said to do with a splendor, or like the angels are said to do with a halo, that could have ultraviolet light in it, which I think is a real plausibility of what made these things glow, or as he said, that these were made by indigenous or by people of what they saw. And in the Bible, it talks about how before the fall of Babel, that the people were worshiping their gods with stone idols. And I think that these are the stone idols that they were using to worship their gods. That's why they have sacred words on them, and holy words, and things of this nature and creation to do this. And then, at the time, it was like the Zepteki time, or the golden era, where God walked with man. And so when when the gods would come, not God with a capital G here, but when Enki or Enlil or any of these Anunnaki beings, or any of their offspring would come, I think that they would illuminate these pieces, and it's plausible that they were able to tell how powerful the being was, and whatever, by how much they would radiate the area.
That's remarkable. That's a remarkable insight, because I have a connection with luminescent beings, which what I have tuned into are that there are different types. They would come to visit me as a little girl, and then I tune into a lot of information about them, how they function through geometries. Some of the species, the types of them, they come in groups, and then they start to create geometries besides their geometrical body that they have. So yeah, I can definitely see how their impact. I have one of Egypt, one necklace of rock that, yeah.
You see this geometry a lot? Yeah. This is the shape here. Yeah. The Merkaba body.
Star. Yeah, the light. Yeah, the light body. Yeah, and sometimes they create other geometries. And yeah, but that's another topic that we can talk about in another.
It's absolutely connected, though. Seeing this was a big thing for me. Is on the base of this, wheels within the wheels, is the geometry. And that symbol is so powerful. It's fundamentally in mathematics powerful, but also fundamentally in a spiritual level on multitudes of accords.
Yes, exactly. Those kind of geometries that are fulfilling the blueprint of creation at different scales. So it's like every time that they come, they are anchoring it into the grid and actually restoring the connection to the primordial matrix or the
Interesting.
primordial field, to say it somehow, you know. And that's why I connected so much with that ringed uh,
Yeah, it's
artifact.
the representation of the portal, spherical portal.
Yeah,
Um, eh, so
look at this too. Yeah.
I have a theory that some of the artifacts are made by different
Wow.
species, but also the offspring of the species that may have interacted with humans, and then also humans that will have witnessed them. And different objects that we have are made, some are made by humans that witness them, and some are older and have more
Mm-hmm.
technology with them. I think the more you get back to the maker being some
Mm.
type of ET or something, the more power it has. Do you have
Mm.
any theories on the different ranks of makers and the objects you hold?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've noticed this clearly. Like some of the items, like for instance, this whistle. The whistle has clearly a different type of iconography on it. It's more Toltec looking. However, there are still alien beings and things of this nature. But you also see the indigenous side of it too. And so I really do think, you know, in Abuelos, we see 18,000 and as early as just 1 to 2,000 years. And so before the
Mm.
Spanish came, before the conquistadors came to abolish paganism, which is exactly probably what they did. And that's probably why this information is suppressed so deeply, because they went in to do a job and we're kind of negating it. And why they did this, is it good or bad? And if if Jesus really came and slapped these guys into submission, the fallen, and that story's true, then these pieces were hidden for a reason and probably are coming out now for another reason, you know, to give us the truth, because we're being led lies, and it'll probably help sum that up, I would imagine. And so, yeah, I really do think that a lot of different levels of beings, you know, for instance, like this pine cone, this pine cone and the way it's carved. Oops, you
Hmm.
see the Anunnaki being on there, but
Yeah,
the
I
type
can
of
see it now.
erosion and the style of, I mean, clearly from a different type of time, and also the type of inlay on the glowing material. It's much like that necklace and a couple of these other pieces that were found in a tomb. We think it might be royal or something of a higher level of a entity or being, because the pieces that were in there, they glow on a whole nother level, and they are very, very more significant. They seem older, and so yeah, I think you're onto something there for sure. Listen to this though.
One hell of a whistle. Wow.
Wow, thank
Yeah,
you.
their tones and whistles are, I mean, really sounds like something you would hear like on the sound effects of a jungle movie, you know, Amazon movie or something. It's very authentic for sure, and pure. The tones also resonate in the solfeggio scale, which is really interesting that they were able to harmonically dissect the tones into that scale, and they used that scale of all the others. You know, that one goes back to the Gregorian chants, and the
Yes.
Romans are the ones who changed that to 440. They created 8 tones instead of 7. We have 7 chakras here in the body, so 8 tones, it doesn't hit any of the chakras anymore, whereas the 7 hits fundamentally. And I think that's why people who use certain drums tuned to solfeggio get a better meditative purpose out of it.
Yeah, and well, if we, what do you think about the 432, which is 9? And there is something that I love and that I normally don't listen a lot about that. And I do believe because it was part of the castration in relation to the elongated skull, because energetically we have here a huge generator that connects us to that capability as the ones that have the elongated skull. And I call it that the eighth chakra, and the other one in the back part of the heart where the wings, to like they expand and they do a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting interconnection. You know that the pharaohs would use that elongated part when you do when you trace from here, intercrossing your midbrain all the way here, and then from the back of your heart all the way up to here, you create an X. So I do believe that they were trying to enhance and harness the energy
Do you know why the pharaoh strapped on the beard? Even on the 15-year-old King Tut's death mask, you have a strapped on beard that's
yes.
braided. That comes from Kemet. The people in Egypt believed that the creators of Kemet were the ones that they put that beard on the pharaoh for, to give praise to, because the pharaohs were the human, essentially kind of like Christs in a way. They were the souls of the gods put into human bodies, right? And so I find that to be very interesting, because if you look at these pieces that we find here, I'll show you an example.
Yeah.
If it goes dead for a second, it's because this is like a dead spot in my room, so I'll try to hurry over here. But look at this guy's beard here. You see the appendage coming down there? Let's see if I can get. Oh, it's probably not going to get. It's a bad spot in the room. Let me find a different one here. Can you hear me now? Oh yeah, I mean, it might be.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just thought about that.
Yeah, no, and actually we saw the previous one. We have some artifacts with that elongation as well.
Yep. We assumed it was like a face mask or breathing apparatus or some type of trunk or something.
Well, it's actually, so the beings in their raw form, before they started evolving out of the waters, because if you look at Tiamat and Apsu, they birthed the lesser gods in the waters, and then they emerged from the waters. Adam and Eve emerged from the waters as well. See the face here? Their tentacles. You've got the tentacle pieces as well.
Yes,
I've seen.
Yes,
and so this is likely the braided version of what I showed you on that first piece. They would braid these tentacles. And so it's possible that these beings, as you can see in this one, they don't have the beard there. He has it here, but it's something that almost seems like there's different versions of them. This one has a mouth. And so these could be Nephilim or creations of, and that's why only some of them have certain parts. Some of them have wings that, some of them have 4 arms. There's a whole variety here. I'll show you the 4-armed one here.
Genetic engineering, changing the form, making a form more habitable to a surface of a planet or offspring with inhabitants.
Yeah, and so that's, this might be Kemet. Tula might have been ancient Kemet to the Egyptians and before the flood, and that was obviously something happened before. They inherited a lot of information and a lot of wisdom at the beginning of Egyptian time, or the ancient Egyptian time. When we find objects as far back as we can date, they were fully functional. These civilizations were turning and burning to be able to even create these pieces that were being found. So obviously they had hundreds, if not thousands of years prior to, or something catastrophic happened, and that was the restart of what they remembered and what they brought with them back, or however it restarted.
There is, speaking about caves, you were saying in the beginning, you were describing one of the caves that you have been to, and you reminded me of a cave that I was taken to in the desert of El Fayum in Egypt, where they found those kind of caves, even templates. So I had I was grateful for being there, and doing a reading on the field and the level of technology of carving the rocks. Impressive. And
there's different layers in Egypt too, I think, and so there was maybe a before. I mean, obviously there's the old dynasty and the new dynasty, and there might even be an old dynasty.
Yeah, no, this one you went down. It's like you were going down like easily 30 or 50 meters down.
Oh, the shaft of Osiris, maybe, huh? Yeah.
No, it's another one. This is very.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know there's a bunch. There's like the Tomb of the Birds, which is
Yes.
really interesting because that's it comes out of where they would come out of the ground, and we see all these bird beings, you know, obviously in the Anunnaki, but also in Egypt. And so I think there's really a connection there. And also that Tomb of the Birds is, you know, they say it's not safe to go in, but you can't even get access to take a drone in there or anything. And
Yes.
I don't think they want people really exploring it.
So Phi C in the chat asks to see the handbag, please, and also any clue why ETs are reclining in so many of the representations from Zach Eden?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions.
Yeah, you're getting
My bad. I haven't even been. I'm sorry. I should probably have it open. I'll do the handbag one here first. As far as what it is, I have no clue. Honestly, this one here has DNA representation, obviously Saturn. It also has one of the pine cones that come out that it's drilled for, and so maybe this is what contained the seeds of life. Is my theory. This pine cone, a lot of people theorize what it is, and I believe it's, you know, they say it's representation to the pineal gland, which I think is an interesting fact. Let me see if here it is. But you can clearly see the pine cone on the tree of life here, and these beings are picking it off. And so maybe they are the ones that brought all the plants and all of the life that we have here on Earth. You know, there's so many trillions of types of species. It has to be some sort of science experiment on some level. Like you just don't see new species being born today. And so at one point, species creation was shut off. And at one point, if in the Pistis Sophia, the Sophia was taken away. You look at the story of Isis and this divine mother thing that goes through multiple cultures, multiple religions, the white buffalo calf woman specifically. I really think that there's something there that was the divine womb, and that when Sophia was taken away and hidden from the fallen who were abusing her, they no longer could create new species or hybridizations, because without her womb, it wouldn't work. She was the one that could take and create things into the physical realm, I believe, with her womb.
My current theory with the handbags, based on scanning them, I've seen at least two, but like law representations of them. The one you have has, like, most of the objects, like with artistry, people that are really good artists, they put a bit of their soul in it. There's like a little bit of energy emission that trades codes and emissions with those that view it. Some art I've seen has portals to it, and they connect to different places, energy and information transferred. So these are more powerful. They have a bigger representation of the soul. They're usually the soul of the creator. And if it's representing a specific being, like this guy has two soul aspects in it, which have to do with the creator who saw this type of being. And the being has a soul connected to, like a little soul part shard connected to the being it's representing, which is fairly powerful as I go into it. This guy has a lot of abilities. I'll give you an example of that. When I was tuning into it, it's emitting tons of mental energy. So like you can prove your intelligence. It got emotional radio-based telepathy, longevity, a plasma body, teleportation abilities. The soul that was connected to this. Generated energy, that's kind of a rare type. I didn't come up with any definitions in art history for it, other than it is emitted in the gut brain. Then there is it's the gut brain energy is used as an access computer kind of system to the hologram of reality, like light splitting infinitely. It's good at ether creation, so it also started emitting ether recently. And I barely run into anything that actually emits ether, including regular humans. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to differentiate it.
Right.
Generating magic, like mana energy, creation and control. It has this cool ability that I didn't know existed until I tuned into it. It's like it has this field around it, and it has spatial abilities to pull objects out of phase and put them back in as a storage mechanism. It has interdimensional resonance, travel.
That might be how they store it under the crystal skulls, huh?
That could be true. Yeah, there's like more space for storage in different objects, possibly. Travel location of themselves elsewhere. It's kind of like bilocation, but it uses a different system. They have spatial place connecting, so they can make a doorway from one place to another and connect them. And and some of the other objects we got, like this guy emits a bunch of spatial energy. Oh, God, get in the camera. It's a smiling face. It looks like he's beating a drum. The upgrade it's giving us currently is some type of gut brain shielding tech that I didn't. Other than it's granted by the prime creator of the galaxy to their species, I don't know how else to define it in energy.
I've seen that tech that was used actually by priests in ancient Egypt or Kemet. You know, that they would use those helmets and then do very specific shields, energetic shields or plasma shields. It imprints that kind of tech.
This also goes back to somebody that viewed this species, and it connects to the species. We'll try to contact them later. This guy, he can only talk to his higher self. And he doesn't really want me to tell why. This has longevity tech, spatial place connection, energy manipulation, spatial invisibility, and like 3 other spatial types of abilities.
Did you find that green one?
Yes. We got the video of it.
I actually, this was next to an obelisk because as soon as we got to the place, I started feeling the field of those artifacts calling me. So then I went and anchored the energy, and then I told him there is something here. And there was this guy and also an obelisk, a big one.
You know how Max uses the pendulum, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's good.
Yes.
So I've got pieces that are depicting these pharaohs and these beings using pendulums. All right. And this was really, like, for me, hearing that they were using pendulums to find these things, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it when I first came onto this. Like, this was real left field for me to accept, right? But when I got this and I started seeing that these things had electromagnetic frequency coming out of there, and I started thinking about how electrical magnetic fields work, and I mean, it's absolutely wild, and it blows my mind, but I do accept it for what it is, that there is science that could be relating this to this, and obviously it works because these guys have a track record that will blow people's minds with this technique. And then how they were taught this technique as well, is it goes back deep, and it spreads through different cultures. It's not just Max and his family using this in Tula. This is people in Awelos that have never even heard of these people in Tula, never even knew people in Tula were pulling this out of the ground, who were pulling pieces with it and the actual pendulums themselves out of the ground. And so that type of connection for me is really elevated. Now those green aventurine statues, I've documented probably 150 of these, right? Owned some of them. They looked absolutely right, but I just could never get anyone to confirm that they pulled one out of the ground. No one. I've never, out of all of them that I've documented. So that's really huge that you're able to contest to that. It helps a lot.
The video's on our page if you want to see it.
No, that's great. It makes me so happy. Like, that's how our paths crosses. I saw this video from my friend, and you guys are out there digging at the sites that I'm been researching for 5 years. So it's really just a genuine, connection to see this type of thing. I've always wanted to go down
and let
and
us
do
know
this. So
we want to work with you, and let us know how we can fulfill some more greater scientific methods for you at the site. We're gonna get a stand for the camera, so we're gonna try to make it so it records the whole time without splitting, so people can't say it's edited and they put it in. Right. And then all that. But these objects are powerful, and you are amazing for getting so many. That's amazing.
You know about the cube? When they sent it to me, I received from the Mayan that some artifacts would start by connection, with the space memory network. And I received that very specific artifacts, like as a time clock, will start appearing now, including the cubes. And I don't say
Wow.
now. You know, I received this
Yeah.
like 3 years ago. And when I came here to Mexico after being in Egypt, when they sent that to me, it was like I could see, yeah, it's outstanding. And I'm so happy that it's in your hands, because that was for me so important, so that that cube reached the appropriate hands.
I've documented 3 cubes. We have 2 of them in our collection. I have one here, and then my business partner. We co-own a lot of pieces together, and he has the other one down in Texas. I'll show you this cube really quick here too, because it's really an interesting piece. Um,
Okay.
it's obviously got some pretty detailed, like I'm going to call it geometry, I guess. It almost looks like crop circles, or that type of knowledge and mapping. But this thing opens up, maybe. Oh, man, it really got put on there. Oops, there we go. Everything is so fit and finished with these pieces that they, it's all stone, obviously, but so things don't fall off. This is meant to be sat up on its side. It sits into this thing like this, and it just balances perfectly. But if the lid isn't put on it, it won't balance. So it's all thought through very well. You can see there's the crystal in there. There's a crystal that they put inside of there. And on the crystal, it's got, let's see if I can get a good shot for you guys here. Sorry. Maybe not. But it's got symbols, and I think it's like you can shake it up, and it's like a magic 8-ball of its time or something.
You know what I see? Because that's not the one that I saw. The one that I saw, it has different scriptures. I will send it to you.
Okay. I'll send you pictures of the other one that we have as well, and the other one that I have documented that the guy's got down there right now in Mexico still.
Okay, yes, thank you. Because what I receive is when you put them together, as many other artifacts that they are meant to come together, then they open up to very specific things. And these ones open very specific stargates that are under the sea, so yeah.
Definitely connections to the sea heavily.
So you can just get rid of skepticism. Somebody in the chat said, "Yo, I'm just getting to the tri-field meter part. You're measuring the electric field from the wiring in the wall. It's coming out 6 to 8 feet into the room. Happy to explain more. Can you go ahead and detest his,
Well, I can't detest it in this room right now showing you. However, if I had a Faraday cage, I could absolutely show you, because that would eliminate any interference.
I know.
And
but
so the wiring in the wall. What I'll do is, here I'll put one in the middle of the room, and then I'll also, obviously, I'll obviously be able to show you that. The wiring in the wall would be centralized in one place on the wall. I can walk down the wall and hit 20 different objects, and all of them have a reaction. Oh, I'm in the chat. There we go. Sorry, I couldn't switch around. So, you can get this on. And what's interesting too is you can go to the radio frequency, and it spikes like randomly, as you just saw. So don't get me wrong. What he said is absolutely the truth. This could be, I get readings by my walls. So he absolutely could be accurate, but you pull these away, you pull them outside, and you shouldn't get those reactions. And obviously the reaction was stronger by the wall, but you still saw in the middle of the floor, there's reaction just to that piece. There was no reaction when I was standing up. It was only when I knelt down and got close to the piece. And so to me, I'm not an expert in EMF, and like I said, what he said is correct, and I appreciate you, Alistair. That's absolutely accurate. This test is not something that we're going to say anything as conclusive data about. It's only interesting and something that needs to be researched further. The reality is a Faraday cage has to be used to be sure.
And what kind of other tests and emission kind of systems have you used to test these objects? You talked about it before with me, just to get it to the audience.
Yeah. Well, as far as for dating purposes, we've done thermoluminescent testing on ceramic pieces where you drill a core sample and you pull out something that hasn't been exposed to light, and it'll tell you when the last time it was exposed to ultraviolet light. And so we've seen quite a few dates in the thousands of years old from ceramics from various places. And then carbon dating, they've carbon dated the adhesive. I'm trying to find a piece with it on there. But many of the pieces have eyes and things that are attached to the piece, and so those inlays have an adhesive, and a lot of times that's made of an organic substance. Likely it has copal resin and things of that nature in there. So we've got carbon dates that range from 9,000 all the way to 18,000 years, and we've tested the resin inside of pipes. Scott Wolter actually performed this test on a pipe that had, it seemed like it was used from a Huelos, and it was a 12,000-year-old organic resin sample. And then I've obviously got some bones that we'll be testing here in 2025. That it's just really, really tough to get bone carbon dating. I had to go all the way to France to find a lab that would be willing to do this. But looking at this this dagger hilt here, it used to have a piece of obsidian, and we broke it apart to be able to take the sample out of it, as you can see here. But nonetheless, the way the bone was ribbed and the way it looked under microscope, the guy said it's very, very old. The bone, regardless, is very old. So that's interesting. Yeah.
We got another question from Feisty. Ask about the fakes he's found with testing. And we had a bit of a conversation about that, so feel free to go into that again for the audience.
Being a skeptic, that was what I wanted to know most, was, how much of this I could prove to be false, or all of it is what I initially thought. I've got carbon dates of pieces that came out, like we found these skulls, and all of a sudden a whole bunch of them started to come out. Well, they didn't look quite right, and you could tell that there was just something that wasn't petrified looking like the other one that I got, even though it was the same shape and cuts. So we got 20-year-old carbon dates and 15-year-old carbon dates on stuff like that. We found pieces that have modern adhesive from a Huelos. They're obviously modern replicas. There's a video on YouTube I did about this, that it's ancient alien Mayan Mexican hoax. Is this real or not? Is the title of it. It's about 30 minutes long. It goes really into detail about this. But like with anything, you're going to have fakes. Just like the Nazca mummies. We purchased 2 of these mummies. They dressed them up like dolls, and this is what they claimed that everything was fake about, because they tested these dolls and that they were fakes. Well, that obviously, anytime that you have something of value like a Rolex, there's going to be fakes made after it. I mean, even our shoes that we wear on our feet, there's people out there making fake Michael Jordan shoes and stuff, so anytime there's money involved, people are going to try. And so at this point, there's certain things that aren't something that people could fake. And that's what's really allowed me to be confident about my research and saying that, yeah, some of these pieces are definitely genuine. And that's obviously finding the petroglyphs and the holes in the ground and that sort of stuff, with the triple ground floors in ancient stone, quarried stone, like that sort of stuff's not being done modernly. And so to me, that's a huge foundation to at least propose the question of, is this legitimate or not?
And can you talk about the mafia that you heard about?
Yeah. So in my book, Anunnaki America, there's an interview with Max in there. And I interviewed about 10 different families from Huelos, Tula, Mikokan, just trying to understand the topic from their point of view. How long have you known about this? Where did you first see this? Etc. And what's interesting is even the elder from Huelos, the elder from Tula, they both admit that the mafia is creating replica pieces. They will literally take a look at the YouTube or the Instagram of some of these when they post them for sale, and a few weeks later you'll have a replica. And I've got numerous in that video that I talked about, numerous that I've sat side by side, and you can obviously tell, but that's the point, though, is you can obviously tell that there's an effort being made to replicate these items. However, they don't have any of that energy or any of that. And when I say energy, I don't mean a metaphysical. I just mean in terms of it captures your attention real hard to study and look at, and you want to keep looking at it, type of a connection, like the Mona Lisa, for instance. And so I think that that's something that's really hard to mass produce. We have people all over the world trying to mass produce art for profit, but real good art, timeless art, is something that really requires energy from the soul. And so these pieces, that's one thing I've noticed, that they have that energy from the soul in many cases more than not. And so I feel that that's a real obvious to the fact that there's genuineness here, because in the Bible, again, they were making stone idols to worship their God. What would cause a man to go through the process? I'll show you this piece, to go through this extensive carving. Well, here, this one here is a great example. So
Yes.
they glue all these stones together. So they have to cut them all. They have to glue them all up there, get it to hold in this form, which is a lot of work. But then they go and they carve vast amounts of detail all over it. I mean, every ounce of this thing, the bottom, the inside, it's all covered in language and beings. So if you were to make this mosaic today and you were to screw up putting those carvings on after you're done with the mosaic, the piece is ruined. There's no backspace. There's no undo. There's no any way to fix that. And to me, that's showing love or admiration or idolism to something much bigger than we are. Because I would only put that much energy in there for something really special.
Yeah, I agree. I paint, and I'm very much into arts. So definitely, it's an imprint. It's a soul imprint. It's an extension, a fractal from you. I wanted to ask you, do you do something specifically to hold the space for all that energy? Because
Yeah.
just by being in a just looking at them, I feel all over my brain, very specific.
You ever get dizzy or anything like that?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Do you
when
ever
we've
get
done
dizzy?
big work for them, when we've done big work for the pyramid we have in the back, big head pressures, and it's like, what is that? Oh, it likes you, so it's granting you a big thing, and then it's like, okay, what? So if it's, that's just one of the reasons. It could be negative entanglement. It could be positive, something getting you attention, nudges, like tickling the hair. Sometimes they'll grant you an authority that's similar to like a crown or a halo that represents an interaction of command and sovereignty. But
you were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, the reality is when I first started collecting these things, I had a couple of really odd experiences like that. I got one time, my mom was even here. I had everything out on my kitchen table. I was taking pictures. It was the first time I got my new camera, and I just started this. I had maybe 50 pieces, and I had them all laid out on the table. And man, I felt like I was almost going to have a heart attack or something. I don't know what a heart attack feels like, but it felt really off. My body got really dizzy, and I couldn't focus. Went and sat down on my couch, and things got better. My mom showed up. We talked. I wanted to show her what I was working on up there, so I took her up, and we looked at it for a couple seconds, and she said the same thing. And that was really bizarre. In my room down here, I've had this happen maybe a couple times, but what I found is I think that I grow cannabis for a living, so I utilize a fair amount of cannabis, and I feel that it has some sort of perpetual effect to this energy for whatever purpose. Maybe it has to do with the pineal gland or the regulation of enzymes or chemicals within the brain. Obviously, if these things are putting out electromagnetic frequencies and radio frequency spikes and bursts like you saw, then there is a plausibility that they do have interaction with our brain chemistry as well as our magnetic field and other things that could throw our equilibrium and other things off. So that's where I look at it as, okay, but it's really at this point, I don't really have any issues. It's been over, I'm going to say close to 2 years since I felt any sort of effect from the piece on that level. I use a lot of tuning forks and I'm a composer. I make synthesizer music, so I'm constantly playing the synthesizer, and I feel that also that connection in terms of meditation and opening the eye has something to do with that type of protection or obviously if these pieces are occult and there are some negative forces attached to some of them, that possibly that would be if you let your guard down a good way in. And so by protecting, with sage or different incense, that's how people used to cleanse areas, right? And cannabis is an interesting thing to burn as well. It's got a very fragrant smell. And so I feel that there could be some incense type qualities to that plant as well that could ward off certain energies.
And you can project healing through it to get things to like you.
I'm going to get something that I want to show to you.
Okay.
And objects, and you've talked about that some people that have found some of them, they're more of the dark, evil, demonic force, some more towards the light. And I'm like going through different ones to see what's going on. And some in the neutral, because, and
that's good. We're dualistic, so you want to be in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And I find you can get most species to there's a way to get them to like you, to not want to harm you, to see you as a benefit to the world, and to detach and keep their shadow off of you. Some like demons or devils or some can't control themselves because they're like an overwhelmed species that are possessed and fractured and stuff. But you can also put your boundaries up, and there's a lot of systems. But I found dehaunting them, depossessing them of things that shouldn't be there, that are not part of the original reason for the being, is the best, because the beings venerated for the most part are usually something worth venerating. Not that many people made statues of Set in Egypt, as an example. Unless they're like an evil dark sorcerer or something like that.
However, there is Horus and Set both looking over what is it, Ramses III, I think, or one of these pharaohs that's pretty predominant.
He wanted both.
It's just like the yin and the yang. I think Set was absolutely the Enlil side of it, and you have the opposite of that, which I think is Horus in this case, right? So, which is really a positive thing. And what's really peculiar with these two figures is obviously we see this Eye of Ra everywhere on these pieces. Now, we don't see the Eye of Horus very often. It's very specific. It's the opposite perception.
Oh, we got the Eye of Horus on ours.
Really?
I'll show you it.
And I've obviously seen many Horus depictions, but I've never seen the eye going the other direction. It's always with the brain stem part going off to the right. And
ours is going to the left.
I'm gonna answer C's question real quick. As far as the megalithic monuments and huge unmovable things, yes. Like taking, I mean, we found big statues that weigh. Let me see again.
This is very heavy, so.
Oh yeah, it is. Sweet. Yeah. See, that's great. I love seeing that because it's obviously important to make that note.
So you get a better look at it while I have it, because it's heavy. You got two slots. Yeah. Those have the rings in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quickly.
Yep.
Okay. So
I know how heavy these things are. Yeah.
Those are the beings with the nose things or the beards or whatever.
Yep. The one on the bottom left's really interesting. I find him on a few pieces as well, and he has a really obviously mummified, decrepit look to him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's some sort of trinity.
Can you turn that computer down?
That I think is all the representation here as well, with the Orion's belt. The Trinity is that's supposedly the throne is the Orion.
I saw that you have a pyramid. Yeah, Orion. You were saying I saw that you have a pyramid also with a lid.
Yep. Yeah, I got a few actually.
Did you find something behind inside that space that the lid?
Nothing inside. This one is a crystal pyramid. This is the Eye of Horus on this one too. Now that I look at it. See, you're pointing things out to me. I love this.
Yeah, our pyramid likes your pyramid. Maybe we get a play date.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Super cool. It's all made of calcite, and the way it's put together, you can see the cornering on this thing. It's really something else. I don't even know. Yeah, some of these pyramids too, like this one, it looks a lot like the ones found in what is it there? Gosh, north of Egypt, Kush, the Kushites. Where's it? Sudan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Meroe.
Can you full screen his thing?
In Meroe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna tip this down on its bottom so you can see. But inside of this here, there's a hole, and what goes inside of it is this block here. It goes one way, so it's got a little ledge here, and you can see this thing poking out is this key, and so the little hole here is where the key, and there's a little latch inside of this that you can tap with the key, and it'll get this block to stay inside of here, which is just incredible to me. And then you can literally turn it upside down, and it's in there.
Wow.
I think it has to be
locking things.
Yeah.
Wow.
But nonetheless, it's really, I mean, to put that much love into something,
Yes.
there has to be a purpose, you know. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they charged me more because it had that. I mean, that's the thing. You know, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, this is her necklace that glows in the dark.
This is a crystal that glows in the dark. It's different.
Oh, wow.
It's a different constitution, molecular constitution, than the one that they used here. But this is from Egypt. This was found in Karnak.
Sorry.
You okay?
I thought it was locked.
Oh,
in
my
there.
baby. It's like,
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I won't even try. I thought it was there, and
okay, cool.
yeah,
As long as it's okay.
it's okay.
I'm gonna pick this up real quick because I don't want to hold it for too long. But here's that.
Oh wow. Yeah. See, that dial in the middle is really peculiar. We found that on quite a few pieces, and it's similar to this. I'll show you.
Okay, so the
wow,
that's beautiful.
So this is an astrolabe, which this means the North Star here in the middle, and then you can see it's actually got the constellations of the night sky, like the Dipper.
Yes.
And so you can essentially know when the last time the sky was like this. It's on a precession of like 16,000 years, I think, or something of that nature, 20,000 years.
Uh-huh.
So we should be able to tell when the sky was like this or when they were depicting this.
Beautiful. Ooh, yeah. And here's where the rings go in this little slot. And then the guy said, is there a capstone? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, have you ever been to Nabta Playa in Egypt?
Nope.
Well,
never been to Egypt.
Well, it's where the Egyptian Stonehenge is, and I had the opportunity to go, and I showed this to my friend Nassim, the quantum physicist, and he was
Harriman?
Yeah. And we were in Egypt, and he showed it to his crew that was there because I was asking to him which material is it, and you can find this there in Nabta Playa. You know.
Oh, okay.
There is. They had a purpose. They were made. You know, they're not a natural. They don't come together organic, like naturally, you know, by the force of nature. it's something that was done for a very specific purpose. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the fact they track the equinoxes and things of that nature too, it goes back to the moon, I think, again with this moon worship and things of that nature. I saw Feisty over here. I totally got sidetracked somehow, I think, whatever reason, but he was asking about megalithic structures, and so there's quarried stones that are 10 tons. One of them specifically that's positioned over this cave that was found at the 16-foot dig level. And so that's one megalithic block there that is in a place. It's also positioned, let's say this is the block. It's literally like this in the ground above the cave. So gravity wouldn't allow that to do that very easily unless they had a crane holding it and they filled in around it. So it would have to have been either a volcanic cataclysm or some sort of flood to be able to get that into that position, I would guess. And that's pretty good evidence. We found chalk mall statues that are like 5,000 to 7,000 pounds, large Atlantean statues that are, 12 to 1,500 pounds or more. On the cover of my book, Tula, you'll find those statues there, as well as in my Anunnaki, the Mesoamerican Atlantis Connection book. We documented the crane that had to come and lift this chalk mall out, and it literally turned into kind of like a little bit of a pursuit. The guys had rented a crane and took it down. It was literally by the side of this river that goes through Tula, and they pulled this large thing out, and people could see it, and so the authorities came, but they'd already pulled it out, put it in the back of a truck, and so they were able to extract the item and not face any consequences. But yeah, it's something else, because it's actually the choke mall isn't just the indigenous, it's got the alien face, Yeah.
Yes. And what I have received is that the track mall actually, it's like always the basis, like if at some point it was holding something, so yeah,
they're all holding, and I've got depictions where it's actually holding like DNA and things of that nature up in that position. So
yeah, I see suspended devices like levitating and holographically.
Wow.
And the most interesting thing is that if you print the image of the Chacmol and then the image of the Mexico, like the country of Mexico, they fit. Taking into consideration the part that was before also part of Mexico, like
right, all the way up to Utah, essentially.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a big factor too, because in Utah specifically, we find a lot of petroglyphs. And if you start looking at these petroglyphs, you're going to see similarities to the ones we're finding down there in terms of the perdernal blade or the perdernal knife and other symbols that are very, very, consistent with that, but not of anything else. So,
yeah. Well, a lot of things coming together now. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great time to be alive, because when I was a kid, I had no clue about any of this, and I had curiosity at a really high level. And so now I feel that it's tamed down a lot, just understanding a glimpse of it,
To help each other in the endeavors of this expansion, we're in Mexico, so we're right in the middle of going to all these sacred places every weekend. We go to a different place. I have a metal detector. I'm having it come in, but other devices that you would recommend for people to use to find these things based on the missions that you've read that they have, and what kind of devices might detect that, do you think, that to make it easier for this to be brought more to the world?
Yeah, there's actually some new technology. A good friend of mine, Robert Kreider, he has a company, and I believe, I might be butchering the name, but I believe it's called GeoPro or GeoTrack. I'd have to double check to be sure. But it's a new thing, and it's an interface box that goes in between your metal detector. So any metal detector with a headphone port, which they all have pretty much, even the $20 ones on Temu. And it just depends on how far in the ground you want to go, right? And so that's the advantage of a nicer metal detector. But you can actually get this box and this software that will transcribe that signal and create a 3D image of the area that you're walking based on that
Mm.
sound. And so it's kind of like a LiDAR drone or whatever. It knows its path, and once it's got that, it'll put it together as an image for you. So you can essentially scan the ground with a very inexpensive metal detector now, which used to cost $15,000 for a geo radar or a ground penetrating radar. Those would be the things to get. They're 15 to 25,000 for a good setup. However, with this technology, I think that'll be obsolete in the near future. So we really have a good future ahead of us, I think, on this topic. And the other things too, there's a long pole type device that detects things. I know if you look up the on our web page there, or if you know Arturo Hernandez, he's the man to talk to on this, because they've tried, I think, 20 or 25 different devices, and they know, and they utilize a lot of them in conjunction to be able to map out and find out exactly what the anomalies are once they find them and stuff like that.
Do you think there could be a scientific study done with people that have these artifacts to see what the effect they have on the body is, the mind, emotions, spiritual effects? What do you think could come about being next to, in proximity to these objects?
I definitely think that there is good and bad that can come from it, depending on the piece and what it was purposed for, and who owned it and utilized it for what it was last, right? It's just like a gemstone that you find in the ground. Like, you want to cleanse it of energies oftentimes if you're going to use it for metaphysical properties or healing, anything of the sorts. So I think these objects have that same type of risk. I know a good friend that was digging down there. They found some human cranium skulls that had carvings and everything on there, and he offered me them for sale one night, and I said, no, my wife's not going to have this, and the next day I messaged him, and he was really down. He's like, bro, I just got to get rid of these things. He's like, I'm just going to throw them away. He's like, I got to go see the witch doctor. I felt like that these things came inside of me, and that there was a soul that was attached to it that was killed as sacrifice, and he's very mad at me for disturbing his remains, and he really was down about this for months. I mean, literally, the guy still holds this at a distance because of this experience. And so there's definitely things that need to be studied as far as getting that type of research done. I mean, you can't even research cannabis. So to get true medical grade research that's going to mean anything at this level, we're still a ways away from that, I think. Just like metaphysical stuff with crystals and gems, there's a reason that it's suppressed, that there isn't any of this information. It's not that people haven't found proof. It's that there's something holding it back, just as disclosure is, I feel. And not trying to put on too big of a tinfoil hat here, but truly there is something holding this information back. And it might be for good, it might be for bad, but there's a barrier.
So as I was going into, and thank you, I think as this field opens up to more people, then we'll be able to see all those, and then be able to interact spiritually more positively with these objects, for us to them and them to us. Like this object, I thought it was like a little bit more negative because it has a knife, and a lot of people think
sacrificing things. Yeah.
But when I was reading into it, I'm not reading it was used that much for it. What it's emitting is, right now, it's a reality bubble magic is what this being is good at. A library of a huge library of like 18 plus galaxies, access to in the conscious mind that it would bring to. This type of reality connecting spirit, interactive self that like would upgrade the person, have their own ability to interact like an operating system with the reality bubble. And then a liver chi shield, which I've seen with myself and a few other people that have unlocked it. Like at any time their electromagnetic field takes hits from demons, their liver will start hurting. And that goes along with this mechanism that in the liver that has a bunch of defense and resolving toxins and detoxing system. So it has like the shield that goes around the person. But that's what that does. I'm still tuning in this one, but this one came with a portal. So We're
Yeah.
eventually, that one, we're going to have to dehan a whole bunch and make sure everything's nice with it. But this has like spatial tech along with it.
Yeah, the portal that Sean is talking about, there is also a lot of connection with what could be considered as Saturn, you know, where
Or
due to the rings,
some
any
ring
planet.
planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Some ring
But
planet.
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
as you said,
It's Saturn.
everything can be used, you know, both ways. And I do
Yep.
believe that if we are running into all this information now, is because, as the Kybalion says, the lips of wisdom remained closed for those ones who are not ready to receive it. In other words, but you know, like bringing it. And I do believe that we are now generating that field of resonance that is open, actually, because we are mirroring now into that information because we are now embodying it. We are more and more connected with our multidimensional nature. Therefore, we are calling into those artifacts because who knows? Perhaps we were the very same ones that at some point left some of them, you know, and you're just fulfilling cycles.
It's bizarre how they almost call out to you. You know,
Yes.
it's really an interesting thing. I have a similar knife.
The brother. It's
look at that.
Yeah.
This type of stone, though, is really, really special. You know,
Yes.
it's found in the museums quite a bit. It's definitely museum stone. It ranges like this one here. It's more green. But nonetheless, it phosphoruses red, which I think is why they utilized it.
We found a big artifact on that stone. It is like it is a spaceship, actually.
Yeah, it was under roots. That was very powerful. Oh wow, that's beautiful. Can you also show us that medallion, that glue gold? Because that one's the most active one you have that I at least saw. That one likes you, and you seem to have the right DNA to unlock some stuff with it.
I've turned down so much money for this thing. I could have put my kid through college, literally. I love this thing so much. It's just a slice of egg, but it's got the Masonic symbol there, and what he's doing with it almost looks like a solar system just gives you a perception of how large these aeonic beings or eonic beings could be in comparison to what
body of some type.
This eye with these symbols around. Obviously, these symbols are not consistent to the ones that are found in Egypt. However, there is a very, very similar thing. I believe it's in the Book of the Dead, maybe, that I saw it, that has very similar symbols on it, with the same eye type of pattern with, you know, everything. So it's interesting to see, you know, the types of they're almost like diagrams or something for space or for time. Who knows?
Yes.
But this is that
the eye
there that's on your obelisk.
Yes, the eye head. Yeah.
And so if you look into the ancient stories of Tiamat, Tiamat was this sea monster slash dragon slash, sometimes she was a female body. Sometimes there's all kinds of different forms of Tiamat, right? But she was the chaotic god before order came to be. And what's interesting is she's being killed by Marduk on this inscription from Iraq. And she is, it looks like a sun around one single eye in the middle. And so it's really interesting because on some of these pieces, like this one doesn't really show it, but on some of them, it actually has the rays, almost like the Statue of Liberty's head. Has these rays coming off of it, you know, and I see this in many of the Greek depictions as well of these beings like Athena, and so I wonder if there is a connection in this regard to this one-eyed being, being the all-seeing eye itself, and maybe why we have Saturn worship on these pieces, because I've documented Saturn over 380 times on pieces from Abuelos, Michoacan, Guerrero, Oaxaca, and Tula. So it's definitely, and it's not just a picture of Saturn like that, but it's also the rings with all the different planets, and then one of the 9 planets having a ring on it, specifically. So like seeing it that in your face is pretty intense. Let me see if that one disc is here. It is actually. Hang on one sec. I'll show you this disc. because on this one, it shows Saturn in a really bizarre way. But it also shows Jupiter and things here. But the rings of Saturn are up really, it looks like really high towards the top of the planet compared to what we would see it as. And so I'm wondering if, obviously those rings are scheduled to be gone at some point here in the near future. And so they could be dissipating, and they may have been up higher on the planet here, maybe because it was impacted by something. It could have been, the battle between Tiamat and Marduk or whatnot. It said that she was split in half and used to create the heavens and the earth in the Enuma Elish.
Well, there is also some relation about that with the moon, because even if you go to Aztec cosmology, they talk about Coyolxauhqui, which is the sister of Huitzilopochtli, that he kills and divides into 5 pieces because she was mean to her mother, which is Gaia. So then she becomes the moon. And there are some theories, researches based on some anomalies in South Africa that are reflecting into South America, Chile, and Uruguay. Like, let's say, collateral effect. Mm-hmm. And that there are some theories that are part of when the moon was a planet before it was turned into an artificial satellite. Some of those plates came deep into South Africa, and that's why also they would raise so much importance to the moon.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. Yeah.
And to add more on like the different topics, some people say Tiamat is a representation of also one of the planets that was destroyed in the solar system that became an asteroid belt.
The asteroid belt.
And then that would make sense with a mother of monsters, as many species could hail from a planet itself that was once called Super Earth or whatever. And then with Saturn, a lot of, there's black robes that worship Saturn. Some people call them Satan. He's definitely a prince of darkness, a planet. As far as I can tell from the past and talking with him, he seemed to have been a star at one point and then had to fall into being a planet. And also the planets in our solar system are super dramatic. They got a lot going on. They also will have avatars in physical body, in humanoid or godlike. So then the Kronos and stuff. They have he's got a harem of planets. He does a lot. There would be more planets destroyed without him. He does process like 90% of the darkness that comes into the solar system and distributes it. People like, Saturn's in retrograde, whatever. He's got a big presence. He's a little overwhelmed with darkness, but he's got also, besides Earth, one of the planets with the most amount of realms, including neutral realms, and they overlay with each other: hell realm, or quarantine realms, prison realms, and heaven realms. He's got a lot of heaven realms as well, and a lot of angels. In
which planet though?
In angel mythos come from Saturn. They seem to have treat the solar system like this graduation zone of multiple schools that also resolve a bunch of drama for other places, and kind of had war. And so they also have dark periods in time when they have to beat up things that are threats to them. So our planets are super dramatic. I would put them in the neutral section, but they definitely that means they both have active spectrums in light and dark as they fractal, and they for multiple races. And their moons will have multiple races, including light, dark, and neutral. And then they have all this drama that comes with them where they go.
And also in the virus is the cure. So I do believe that some of the codes in relation to the representations of Saturn are pointing out to something to actually shift the frequency within that is transmitting through the time control systems raised through the Gregorian calendar and so forth, which are anchoring that Chronos here in this matrix to actually enlighten the dormant genes that are within us that go beyond that artificial time to restore the universal time that like also the Mayan and the Aztec were showing, they were pointing out to. And a friend, Gustavo Medrano, we had a show with him, and he showed this template that also has the image of what is common, mostly known as Pacal, you know, the same that you showed.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And in the back part of that tablet is the communion of the Mayan calendar and the Aztec one. So, yeah, I will ask him for a picture and send it to you because it's the communion. It has like the four pointed star, and in the wheel of the Mayan. So
I'm gonna show you this. Hang on. Hang on, because this might bring a good image to what you're talking about. I think it's kind of similar, possibly. On the back of this thing, it's extremely heavy. I'm gonna flip you guys around so you can see it better. You can see it's got Thoth here working with beings, squid face guy here. And if you look here, it's interesting because the Nazca mummies and the beings being found in Peru only have 3 fingers, which it's something that was very specifically put there for a reason. And then you go down here, and this is the hard part to get to focus for you guys, but here we go. You can see the whole entire little lineage of creations that they made. It's like a little school of different species. Oh, let's see if this works. Nope. Okay. Quite the piece, though.
Yes, it is. It is impressive. I translated a code based on the Aztec calendar, taking into consideration that the whole face is also a representation of wormholes.
Oh.
And how from the tongue, it's, you know, the entrance to that wormhole, and then you navigate through all the structure, activating all the information that they are representing. I will also send it to you.
Yeah, please. No, that sounds really fascinating.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Adam, it's a mosaic tablet there. The people in Abuelos, they had, I mean, the amount of mosaics and how they created them. There's some. Let me see if I have the one in here. Yeah, it's underneath this table. I mean, it weighs about 75 pounds. It's a large sphere, but I mean, to get this to glue together, just sounds really. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, but it just seems extremely demanding because even just the amount of weight sitting on the pieces, like you have to trust that glue so much.
Yes.
70 pounds just sitting on something that was glued together, you know, it's some construction for sure.
Yes. And the artifact that you showed with the crystal just came to my mind, like a kaleidoscope, you know, and also putting a specific beam of light wherever it was found nearby, and then something that was encrypted in the layer of that rock activates. This is what I see. I hope it.
And I think you might be onto something because, like, look at this one here. And even this obelisk, you can see it's got a hole through the top up there. So it's almost like it was meant for light to come through at some point. Same with this thing. And this little ball moves in here. So it's like it's almost for angling the light or something. Looks like something out of a video game.
Yeah, and what they activate is all the glyphs that they have engraved on them. You know,
Yeah.
it's an activator. Well, yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's not just, they're not just pieces, they're not just artifacts. They are the result of your hard research, commitment, passion, and love to what you do. So thank you, because actually you're amplifying as well the field of those of that art.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thanks for holding that museum, and
Yes.
we're planning on doing the same. So we're coming on that
Yeah.
journey with you. It's so beautiful in
Yeah,
there.
I want to try to travel with the pieces more and get them in different places. You know, we talked about, you know, where would be the best place to put the museum if we were going to make one, and initially it would be great to have them in multiple locations just to try. But the cost of doing something like this it can be crippling if you're not careful, and so doing it on a traveling level, like a tour of some form, or with, you know, some sort of show or event or whatever, I think is really a good thing. And we did a miniature museum on the Contact at Sea cruise. I brought about 40 pieces on board and set them all up, and had people be able to come through with the light and hold them, and
Mhm.
you know, channel with the crystal skulls and things. And I mean, the fascination and the smiles and what it brought to people, I feel is definitely something that would be a good way to get it out there, you know.
Yes, they're fulfilling their purpose.
Yeah, Sedona. That's Adam knows. Yeah, I think Sedona is a really great place for a
Yeah.
museum. In fact, the eye pyramids guy Justin, he's worked with a friend of mine out of Texas who has some of the skulls and things, and has done some showings there in Sedona and had really good reception. You know.
Yes.
Hmm. Well, speaking of which, we will be in Sedona by March for my birthday. So perhaps
Right
at
on.
some point we can meet. You know,
That, that'd be
that
cool.
would be
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
sign
and
me
share
up.
more.
I,
Yeah.
I have never gotten to go down there yet, so I've heard only amazing things about it being a portal and a very enlightened and good place. That's where J.J. Hurtak lives too, and where the Academy of Future Science is based out of. So, would love to go stop by there and pay some homage for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, thank you so much
Okay.
for coming on. It's been upgrading like crazy, fascinating, so much history, and yeah, people seem to like you. So, what ways can people contact you, and what
um,
projects do you have coming up?
Yeah, contact is easy through Instagram or TikTok or any of the. Well, actually, not TikTok now because I think they're getting canceled. But we used that a lot in the past. But Instagram is pretty good. Facebook, I'm on there too. Our website has a contact form, aliencarvings.com. The website's a really good resource for things. I haven't updated it a ton in the last year because I've been writing. I wrote 5 books last year, and so I've been really busy and putting everything into the books to try to get them
Where,
done,
where,
and so.
where can people get your books if they
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to
Oh
buy
Can you
yeah,
them?
name some of them too for people?
yeah. On Amazon actually is where they're all at. You can search, you know, Michael Forrest, author, or something of that nature, and then it'll pull them all up. There's also a link on our website there, Alien Carvings. But like this is our Anunnaki book that goes into pretty good detail. I mean, you can see it's all high res photos of the dig sites and different items that we found, and it goes into a lot of you know, I guess just really theories and what it could be. And then this is my recent book here, Anunnaki America. This has the interview from Max in it, and it's all text for the most part. There's quite a few pictures that go along with it, you know, throughout the book. But mostly just text. It goes really deep into the history of the Toltecs and how on earth this story of these aliens could tie into not just Mesoamerican beliefs, but into the entire history of the culture of the world, like Native Americans and things of that nature, and just how more closely tied we are than I think what people give credit to.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
sold on us. I love. It's a really good alien phone number book you got there. So
Right.
You
we're
can
gonna get
sign
that.
it for us
Yeah,
when we meet in March.
Definitely, yeah. And the new one I'm making. So when I was 3 years old, I was with my mom at the bookstore, and I had just seen the Indiana Jones with my uncle, and I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like these artifacts or anything. Obviously, it's a movie, you don't think that stuff's real, but my mom's like, no, they really have stuff like that in Egypt. Those are real places. They're talking about Petra, and so when we went to the bookstore, she asked what kind of book I wanted to get, and I told her I wanted books on Egypt. I wanted to study the language and the symbols and the different artifacts that they found. And we looked and looked, asked the library lady, couldn't find anything really that went into detail the way I was hoping to see it. And so here I am, 35 years later, making a book just like what I always wanted to see on Egypt, but with these pieces from Mexico. So it's going to be a catalog that goes through my entire collection. It's over 300 pages, and real macro deep dives of every angle of each piece and what we know about them. So
wonderful.
Yeah, we can be talking a lot about Egypt. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Many topics.
any other events or projects or things you plan on doing in the future?
Yeah, right now, there's a couple events coming up. I know there's one in Florida, and I was going to do Contact in the Desert. However, we're going to go down and see the Her Talks for Easter instead. It's the release of the 10th superscript there, which is a book series. If you've never checked it out, keysofenoch.org. It's a rabbit hole on this topic in itself, and it's really a fascinating thing. So, going to go do that instead this year, and focus on mostly just doing like what we're doing now and talking on the internet, doing a lot of podcasts, and then hopefully once things get a little bit better in the economy, we'll start doing more events again. The events have been really low attendance the last 3 events that we went to, and so it's just it's hard to get excited when there's only a couple hundred people or 1,000 people, whatever there is, but it was definitely a lot less than what they'd had in previous years. So.
Well, let us know if you're. We're going to be at the Full Disclosure Now movement in Florida, so if maybe we'll see you there.
That's the one in Florida. Yeah, working
awesome.
on that to see. Yeah, that's the one. I don't know if you guys saw what Johnny Enoch said today about Gaia, and he came out and mentioned this event in Florida. That it's the only event that he supports now, and that's part of the reason too why I've held back and stepped back, because a lot of these events are in control of Vanguard or BlackRock Investment Corporation, and they own Gaia, they own Prometheus, all your ancient aliens, everything on any of these networks. At least 78% of all published media is owned by BlackRock or Vanguard, and there's a reason these things are being suppressed and depressed on the news and on these shows. And I have a feeling it has to do with this, and I know that's kind of conspiratorial, but at the same point, these corporations come up a lot, and if you watch the president last night, he said, goodbye to the nation. But at the very end, he said that he warned America of something that was really evil and stepping up this rich oligarch thing. And I think a lot of people immediately said, oh, he's talking about his enemy or his opponent, Donald Trump, right? But the truth is, I feel that he was actually warning us about these companies, BlackRock and Vanguard and other things like it that are suppressing things. And I think he got a real keen awareness of this when he basically got canceled because of his age. And when they had to replace him and do all these things, I think he saw a different side of the people he worked with or for or under, and realized just how strong and powerful and evil that they were. And that's why he gave us that message. So, yeah, be careful where you're getting your information, I guess, is my warning at this point.
Yes. Well, let's keep on building up this network of those ones who know that where we are coming from and where we are heading to. And the stronger and the more united, the stronger that we become. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's the truth, and doing what's right, and the truth is the light. You can't argue that the truth is a good thing. So no matter how suppressed or how evil this information is, the truth is still really important to our birthrights and who we are and why we're here. And anyone that's trying to suppress that is definitely not a friend.
Yes.
Exactly. So let's get the truth out more. And everyone out there, share this to 5+ friends or whoever you want to wake up and break out of the matrix, because these objects break people out of the matrix. They break their ego boundaries that hold them into, oh, it's just this thing. There's a lot more out there, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous, great mystery. There's so much to explore. Yeah, and how do people reach you? And then we'll go into things.
Well, yeah, omnivision.hunuch@outlook.com or www.hunuch/in-the-middle-apna.com. Yeah, I'm, as you know, I'm giving, facilitating online courses on science of the spirit, related to plasma tech, DNA activation, interdimensional travel, applied in the DNA, the source code, which is your geometrical body. I read it, I translate it so that then you can activate it through your plasma. My new book in English is going to be released soon, perhaps for my birthday in March, which talks about the unified consciousness, and will soon be uploading my frequencies with my voice and some sounds of the neurons generating synapses and other very deep brain activation waves in Spotify. So yeah, a lot of things coming into the feed.
And
how about you?
Thanks. Mystery schools. I'm Sean Bond, a founder of Psionic League, PSI for Psionic. YouTube, psionicleague.com for a bunch of products, and you can reach me for consultations and clearings, healings. I'm one of the rare individuals that can do deep possession at a distance and exorcism, get rid of blocks and trauma, and release trapped emotions and heal pain over a distance really instantly. And yeah, if you need help with that stuff, and we're also doing this Sedona conferences, Rise of the Guardians, Full Disclosure Now movement.org, or fulldisclosuremovement.org. If you want to get tickets, we'll be presenting various empowering workshops and presentations, and you might be able to also meet Michael there and us, and you can become our friend. And we do little workshops and mystery schools online. So if you want to sign up for that, and trips around the planet. Before we went to Egypt, very powerful, activating superhuman love. Now we're doing one different sacred sites, pyramids, place of power that can grant you superpowers if you bring them something they need to feel safe and expand and grow to where they generate more amplified. Yeah, and like Mexico, we'll be going to a bunch of different places, some archaeological interactions, as well as mystical experiences, and be teaching workshops. So if you're interested in that stuff, send us at like psionicleague@gmail.com. Trip inquiry at the top, and we'll just add you to the list. You're not signing up for anything right away. We're going to give you a bunch of information on it, and then you can decide if you want to go. You're just adding yourself to the email list to get the monitoring.
Yeah, we're planning a very special trip, not only ancient sites that are commonly known, also the ones that have been recently found in Campeche that are kind of Indiana Jones, that you can still go up to the pyramid inside the temples and actually have a very quality time with very not very crowded. So that's very good for this kind of trips, because then you really get quality time to connect with the places. We will also be going to places that are quite visited by ETs, and we will be staying there for the night, doing very specific practices to have all this contact. And
we can teach telepathy, so you can interact with and contact these ETs, the ones that are more safe. Like this one seems to be a species on Earth and inner Earth. Their species is dwindling. They have time travel tech. They're adding their genetics to the human species as like a garden to to amplify us, and they see us as children. They're resolving a bunch of things. We're also resolving things for their species, so they see us as like a savior. And they're dealing with some issues with their disconnection from their planet, to where it's stopped their ability in fertility. So they have but they have life extension. So they're kind of using stasis pods to keep themselves going until a certain point in time. But there's all these artifacts of different ETs. I want to know how many, on the next show, how many, what do you think of the different ETs that you're seeing envisionment of, and your categorization of them and the qualities. And maybe we can make a Mayan, ancient Mexican ET book or something with of ET species.
Have you seen Craig Campabasso's book, the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac?
Oh,
he wrote a book. It's got like 83 different species of extraterrestrials documented with drawings and stuff in there. Really cool book. And literally, I thought of this exact thing because we've seen so many different variations of these grays and different, winged beings and things of this nature. Or a categorization is really important for cataloging that. And I think once I get the catalogs done from the three, I'll have all these pictures on deck that I'll be able to go through and create this maybe categorization a little easier, hopefully, because it's really challenging to, you have to have a name for them. And what do you call this guy?
I look forward to it. Yeah. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, someone asked a question, Adam, that it says Alien Carvings is the Instagram.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So everyone out there, smash that like, subscribe to do you have a YouTube? Yeah.
Yep. Same thing. Alien Carvings.
Okay, cool. Yeah, subscribe to both our all three of our YouTubes. Leave a comment showing Michael your love, and and share this video as much as possible to as many people to help them wake up, break them out of the matrix. Perfect video to do that. And the more we see it shared, the more we will know you want this, and then we'll have Michael on for more shows.
Yay.
Anytime.
And anything you want to leave the audience with in inspirational words of wisdom.
Stay open-minded, I guess, is the biggest thing I've taken away from all of this is don't let evil or good or bad or any of this stuff get in your way, because it's all meant to be, it seems like, for a reason. And without the chaos, you can't have order. And so, you have to balance this thing out. We talked about this earlier before the show. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is just keep an open mind, because what you believe today might be completely disproved, or you might believe something completely different tomorrow. So always have respect to others with different beliefs, because we're all just trying to figure it out.
Well said. Anything you want to say?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being here at this moment in this evolutive stage in Earth. And the more united that we are, we thrive. In unity, we thrive. And I do feel and perceive that this is one of the most important messages that we can find in this art, in these artifacts, that everything is there. We just need to remember, and the way that we remember is going deep within. So,
yeah, and this stuff will change the world. So thank you, everyone, pushing this to disclosure and getting more and more people aware of this. Each one of these objects activate big things in the conscious, break through blocks, limitation, emit cool abilities, communication system for ET contact. They're alive themselves. They have a mission and goal they want to bring out, and the consciousness shifts they can have and upgrades to people can bring us to a way better timeline, type 1, 2, 3 plus civilization and beyond. So as we work with them and are good caretakers to them, to where they are respected and respect us and don't harm us, then we can do some great things for those that are ready, of the objects, beings that are ready to come out of the soil into our lives. And then we have a way to break through this enslavement and limitation in prisons around the mind. So thank you all for coming. Love you. And again, show Mike some love, and to try to, share this so that we have him on another show. Yeah. Hope everyone has a wonderful night. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one. See you later.